The second the words were out of my mouth, I watched the perfect little world my parents built around my brother just crumble. The silence that followed was somehow louder than all the yelling that came later. He cheated, he lied, and he really thought I'd help him cover it up. He was wrong. If you're going to understand why I did it, you have to understand my family. You have to get what it's like to live your entire life in the shadow of a golden child, a perfect son who was never, ever allowed to be anything less than perfect. My parents put my brother on a pedestal, and I was the one who finally decided to kick it over. This is the story of how I blew the lid off my brother's double life and brought that perfect world crashing down. My brother Mark was born with a halo. At least, that's how my parents saw it. He's 2 years older than me, and from the day I was born, the family dynamic was set. Mark was the son. I was basically Pluto occasionally acknowledged, but never really part of the main event. He was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Our parents, especially our mom, treated him like he was a part of her. His wins were her wins. I remember when we were kids, maybe 10 and 12, Mark shattered a neighbor's window with a baseball. When the neighbors showed up, furious, my mom didn't even let him get a sentence out. She immediately started defending Mark, saying he was the most responsible kid she knew and that it must have been a freak accident, or maybe one of the other, less reputable kids. She paid for the window but acted like she was doing the neighbor a huge favor. A week later, I accidentally knocked over a vase in our living room. It wasn't even expensive, just sentimental. I was grounded for a month, lost my allowance, and got a 1-hour lecture on carelessness. The message couldn't have been clearer. Mark's mistakes were just things that happened. Mine were character flaws. This was our whole lives. Mark gets a C in chemistry, and my parents hire a tutor, complaining that the teacher just didn't get his unique learning style. I got a B+ in that same class and was asked why it wasn't an A. When Mark got his driver's license, he got Dad's old car. When I got mine, I was told to get a job if I wanted wheels. He was shielded from every consequence, praised for doing absolutely nothing, and celebrated just for breathing. This didn't just create an imbalance. It built up this deep, quiet resentment in me, a constant feeling that I would never be good enough. He grew up to be exactly the guy you'd expect. Handsome, charming, a good job in finance, and a life that looked perfect on Instagram. He met Sarah in college, and she was amazing, kind, smart, and totally in love with him. My parents adored her, but only because she was another shiny accessory for their perfect son. On the outside, they were the dream couple, but I knew my brother. I saw that little flicker of entitlement, the way he expected Sarah to plan her life around his schedule. The annoyance in his eyes when he wasn't the center of attention. He was raised to believe the world revolved around him, and that doesn't just go away. It seeps into everything, poisoning it from the inside. I could see the pressure on Sarah to keep up the act, and a part of me just felt this cold sense of dread. A pedestal is a lonely place, not just for the person on it, but for anyone who has to stand next to it. Things started getting weird about 3 years into their marriage. Sarah just seemed off. The spark she used to have? It was gone. At family dinners, she was quiet. She'd put on a smile whenever Mark or my parents looked, but in those unguarded moments, you could see the exhaustion on her face. I tried to ask her about it once at a barbecue. She was on the back porch, just staring into space. I asked gently, "Hey, you okay? You seem a million miles away." She physically jumped, and that fake bright smile snapped right back on. "Oh, just tired. You know how work is." She changed the subject fast, but her eyes were practically begging for help. The first real proof landed in my lap by total accident. My laptop died, and I was at my parents' place for dinner. I asked to use Mark's old one that he kept in his childhood room. He just waved me off. "Yeah, go for it." Password is champion1. Of course it was. So I'm working on something, and an email notification pops up. The account was logged in, and the subject line was just, "Tonight." The sender was Jessica, a name I'd never heard. My curiosity took over. I know, it was none of my business, but a lifetime of knowing my brother, of really knowing him, was screaming at me. I opened it. The email was short, but my stomach just dropped. "Can't wait to see you. Same place. I'll wear that dress you like." My blood ran cold. I started scrolling. It was a whole chain, going back for months. Secret meets, flirty, intimate texts. He was talking about boring nights he had to endure. He was talking about his life with Sarah. I felt sick to my stomach. My hands were shaking. As I kept scrolling, it got worse. There were forwarded hotel confirmations. Receipts for gifts I knew for a fact Sarah never got. This wasn't some one-time screw-up. It was a calculated, long-term betrayal. He was using work trips as his cover, his charm as a weapon, and his golden child entitlement as his excuse. The rules just didn't apply to him. For a week, that knowledge just sat in my gut like a rock. What do you do, right? My loyalty should have been with Sarah. She was the one being lied to. But that family conditioning runs deep. My whole life, I was taught to protect Mark's image. Blowing this up meant detonating a bomb in my own family. It would be all-out war with my parents, who would 100% defend him and call me a jealous liar. I decided to confront him first. Maybe it was the coward's way out, but I had to see his face. I called him for a drink, trying to keep my voice even. He was his usual self-confident, charming, ordering some expensive whiskey without even glancing at the menu. I didn't beat around the bush. "I know about Jessica," I said. The change was instant. The smile disappeared. His eyes went cold and hard. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Mark," I said, my voice getting stronger. "I saw the emails on your laptop, the hotels, everything." He just stared at me. I was expecting him to beg me to keep it a secret. What I got was so much worse. He leaned in, his voice low and threatening. "You didn't see anything. And even if you did, you will say nothing." "Sarah deserves to know," I shot back. He laughed, a cold, empty sound. "Sarah doesn't need to know. She's happy. We're happy. You're going to keep your mouth shut because you know what happens if you don't. Mom and Dad. They won't just be disappointed. They'll cut you off. You think you're an outsider now? Try me. You'll have no one." It was the threat he always had over me, but this time it was different. "And don't forget," he added with a cruel little smirk, "who Dad listens to about Grandpa's trust. You want any of that inheritance one day? Then you will forget everything you think you saw." And that was it. That was the moment. The blackmail, the complete lack of remorse, the ice in his veins. This was the real Mark. The golden boy was a monster, built and protected by my parents' deliberate ignorance. He wasn't just a cheater. He was rotten to the core. And as he sat there, so sure he was untouchable, I decided he was dead wrong. He'd left me with no other choice. If this story is hitting home, and you've ever felt like you were the only one seeing the truth in a family that loves its lies, make sure you subscribe, because it's about to get a whole lot crazier. After that conversation, I wasn't conflicted anymore. This wasn't about loyalty versus truth. It was about justice. It was about protecting Sarah from a life with a man capable of such cold-blooded manipulation. My brother made one huge mistake. He thought the threat of losing my family was still my biggest fear. He didn't realize I'd already lost them years ago. I needed a plan. I couldn't just tell Sarah privately. My parents would launch a smear campaign, gaslight her, and convince her I was a jealous liar. It would be my word against the golden child's. I'd be gone, and Sarah would be even more trapped. No, this had to be public. It had to be undeniable. That pedestal had to be kicked out from under him in front of everyone whose approval he lived for. The perfect stage presented itself a month later, my dad's 60th birthday party. A huge, catered event at a country club, packed with family, friends, and business partners. The annual showcase of the perfect family. I spent the next few weeks getting my ammo ready. I had photos of the emails on my phone. Then, I found Jessica on social media. Her profile was public. She had pictures of herself wearing a necklace that I recognized from one of Mark's secret credit card receipts. The final nail in the coffin? I sent a text to Mark from a burner number, pretending to be Jessica, thinking of our weekend in the city. "Miss you." He replied almost instantly. "Miss you more. Can't talk now. Soon." Screenshot. Done. The night of the party, I felt weirdly calm. I walked into the ballroom, and there they were, my parents, glowing, my dad holding court, and Mark right there with him, his arm wrapped around Sarah's waist. She looked stunning, but her smile was pure performance. I waited until after dinner, right before the speeches. My dad stood up, tapping his glass. "Thank you all for coming," he started. "I have to give special thanks to my wonderful wife and to my two incredible children, Mark and..." He trailed off, sort of gesturing my way, ... who make me so proud. That was my cue. I stood up. "Dad, if I could just say a few words." The room went quiet, all eyes on me. My mom gave me a look that was half confusion, half warning. Mark's jaw tightened. "I just want to echo what a wonderful family we are," I started, my voice totally steady. "We're all so proud of the image we have, especially of Mark, the perfect son, the perfect husband." I let that sink in. Sarah was looking at me, confused. Mark was glaring, trying to silently command me to sit down. "But the thing about perfect images," I went on, "is they're often just that, images. And I've learned that keeping secrets to protect an image doesn't actually protect anyone. It just lets bad people get away with bad things." I pulled out my phone. "For example, I think it's amazing that Mark is so devoted to Sarah, which is why I was so confused when I saw his emails to a woman named Jessica, planning romantic weekends while Sarah thought he was on business trips." You could have heard a pin drop except for the collective gasp. My mom's face went ghost white. My dad looked completely lost. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. Mark shot out of his chair. "She's lying. She's always been jealous. She's making it up." "Am I?" I asked, turning my phone screen towards the nearest tables. I had the screenshot of his text conversation right there. "Then whose number is this, Mark? The one you were just texting, saying how much you miss her?" Then I turned to Sarah and my voice softened. "And Sarah, I am so sorry, but you deserve to know that the diamond necklace he said he bought for a client's wife last Christmas, well, Jessica loves it. She posted a picture of herself wearing it on her Instagram. And then all hell broke loose. My mother started screaming at me. My father was just stammering, looking back and forth between me and the glitching image of his perfect son. Sarah was crying, silent tears just streaming down her face as she stared at her husband. Mark wasn't even trying to deny it anymore. He was totally, completely exposed. I didn't stick around. I just put my phone on the table, turned around, and walked right out of that ballroom, leaving the wreckage of their perfect world behind me. The aftermath was exactly as messy as you'd think. Sarah left him that night and filed for divorce. My parents, predictably, took his side. To them, his affair was a mistake, but me exposing it was the real crime. My dad called to tell me I wasn't welcome in their house anymore. My mom sent me a series of texts that I won't repeat. I haven't spoken to them since. Mark's life blew up. News of his very public humiliation spread like wildfire. The reputation he'd built as a stand-up family man was gone. For the first time in his life, he had to face actual consequences, and from what I hear, he is not handling it well. Turns out the golden child, stripped of his shine, is just a guy with a fragile ego who can't cope when he's not winning. My relationship with Sarah is complicated. She called me a few weeks later. She thanked me for telling her the truth, but was angry about how I did it, which I get. I apologized for the public humiliation, but told her I didn't see any other way to break through the wall of denial my family would have built. We talk sometimes. She's healing. She's finding herself again, the person she was before she became just another one of Mark's accessories. As for me, it's weird. I lost my family, but I've never felt more free. I'm done twisting myself into knots to fit into a system designed to make me feel small. I'm done biting my tongue to protect a lie. The truth was ugly, and the fallout was painful, but it had to happen. Living in the shadow of a golden child is like being starved of oxygen. You're taught your reality doesn't matter if it messes with the family story. Breaking that story wasn't revenge. It was an act of survival. I didn't do it to burn his life down out of spite. I did it to finally let some real light in. So that's the story of how my family's perfect little illusion shattered. It was loud, messy, and it changed everything. Now I have to ask you, what would you have done? Would you have told her privately? Kept the secret? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories about breaking free from toxic family dynamics, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.